Hello and welcome back to Bloodborne. This is part 9 of our Beast Cutter run. Last time we started the DLC and we got a ton of weapons that I sold. And we went through 2 full areas, beating 2 full bosses. And here, we got Laurence's skull last time, so I decided to start this one off by trying to take out the optional DLC boss. And I'm gonna let this cutscene play itself out. So, pretty obviously, this is just endgame cleric beast, right? And in a sense, yes, but they got some new moves. Obviously, they have a fire elemental to them. But I'd say most importantly, a lot of their attacks actually have an AoE that does fire damage. And they do a lot more damage than you might think. And I was surprised by how much damage we were doing. Because this is, in my opinion, the hardest boss in Bloodborne. By a long shot. And I'm very surprised that didn't kill me because in pretty much every other run ever, that killed me. And it might be because I'm over-leveled, because I've been doing a lot of Chalice dungeons and I'm over-leveled on this character. But like I said, at least for me, this is the hardest boss in Bloodborne, and it's not even close. They are infinitely harder than any boss in Dark Souls 1. I haven't really played Dark Souls 2 yet as of recording, so can't say on that front. And they're harder than just about any non-DLC Dark Souls 3 boss. DLC Dark Souls 3 is a bit different, but one of the hardest in the series, definitely the hardest in Bloodborne. Very surprised I beat them first try. I decided to go with this boss first because I thought it would take like 10 tries. But there we got Beast Embrace, which is a very good oath for the Beast Claw weapon. And having beat them surprisingly first try, I felt pretty confident going into Maria's boss fight. So we head on in, and just like with Laurence, I will let this cutscene play itself out.
A corpse should be left well alone. Oh, I know very well how the secrets beckon so sweetly. Only an honest death will kill you now. Liberate you from your wild curiosity.
So, something about Maria is she is very weak to parry. And something about me is, I don't parry. So, that is a very interesting combo. Now, don't be fooled by me getting 2 parries off like that, because that is not how things typically go. Before this boss fight, I genuinely cannot remember the last time I got a parry off on Lady Maria. Like, I would say Bloodborne and Dark Souls 1 are the only 2 games where I parry at all. And Dark Souls 1, it took me a good, like, 7 runs or so in order to figure out that it was actually really easy to parry in Dark Souls 1. And for Bloodborne, I don't really parry bosses, mostly just enemies. And when I said that I don't really parry bosses or Maria, welcome to how I typically fight Maria. This is how things typically go. And by that I mean, things typically go incredibly well phase 1, and then things go pretty well phase 2, and then she gets fire and I just get bodied. Surprisingly, still beat her first try though. So, we'll take the Celestial Dial, we will go with the old a win is a win mindset, and I mean, considering how well the Laurence fight went, I'm surprised that this didn't go worse as like a karma distribution thing. It's like, if you get really good luck in one fight, you need to get really bad luck in another fight. And I wouldn't say that was good luck with Maria, but I didn't die. So you can't really call it bad luck. So I don't know what's gonna happen coming up. I thought walking away from him would cut out his dialogue. It did not, but I like the cut of his jib. He's talking the good words, and I like that. Now, you may have noticed that I left that Maria fight with like 11 blood vials, and I just didn't go back to the Hunter's Dream. And that was partially because I didn't want to go through 2 loading screens because of how well the last part went. I know English. But also partially because these enemies are very easy and give a lot of blood vials, so. And here we get a blood gem, and that's okay for like a second weapon. Pretty good if if the weapon has a lot of thrust, like the rifle spear or the Reaterpalosh. Very good for weapons like that, I suppose. Our weapon doesn't have a lot of thrust attacks. It only has 1, and I don't think I've ever used it in combat. Now here, giant fish thing, very deadly enemy. Explosive barrels. It's surprisingly difficult to hit those barrels with the pistol, but the blunderbuss, that was super easy. Now, I typically go with the pistols because of their higher damage, and I think not all, but some of them look better. Like, the Evelyn looks very, very nice, and I was hoping they would die. But anyways, I'm typically not a big fan of the spread shot weapons, just because of how low their damage is, and maybe I'm delusional, but it feels like they shoot slower, and I have a really hard time dealing with that. But I really like to give credit where it's due. I really like to see the upside in every weapon, and the spread shot weapons, pretty good for enemies that do a lot of sidestepping, or the enemies that have like small hitboxes or very fast. Very good for catching them, and it's good for hitting explosive barrels because the pistols are garbage at that. But I'm pretty glad that I picked up the blunderbuss, honestly. I thought that it was going to be a major downside for this run, but I haven't had any problems with it, really. I don't want to say that it's made parrying easier, but I've never gotten that many parries on Lady Maria in a single fight, so I'm just gonna have that information be where that is. But there we got the Harrowed set, which, if you're talking purely physical defense, the Harrowed set is, I believe, the highest, paired with the Canehurst set. At least the chest piece does 120, which the Canehurst chest piece also does 120, whereas most chest pieces do like 110 on the high end and then like 80 or 90 on the low end. So, not a massive difference, but Harrowed set is the highest for purely physical defense. And I know some people really like that, so it also looks very interesting. Now there, you might be able to see why I was running. But there's a normal enemy that I ran past, one of those little curse spewer guys, and another giant fish, but that one has an anchor. But they're all protecting, it's either one or two bloodstone chunks hiding off in a corner. I don't need them, so I'm not gonna get them. But here there's a lamp, and Simon, once again.
Who are you? I'm afraid I've made a botch of things. Oh, I can hear the bell now. The beast-eyed assassin. He's after me. Again. And again. It never ends. Please. I need you to do something. This village is the true secret. Testament to the old sins. It feeds this hunter's nightmare. Please. Bring to an end the horror. So our forefathers sinned. We hunters cannot bear their weight forever. It isn't fair. It just isn't fair.
So at this point, I didn't realize that they automatically went into your inventory, but you get his bow blade, which is a curved sword that turns into a bow, and you get a key. And at this point, you start getting invaded. Now, it is an NPC invader, so even if you're playing offline, you'll still get it. But something that I personally do is head back here to the Ludwig fight, where you can see the invasion. And he just kind of pops up, and there are 4 different locations. this is supposed to be the fourth.
Fear the bells toll. For only death awaits foolish prying eyes, and the church assassins are never far behind.
So with Simon's death, you also got the key for this door.
Well, look who's here. Welcome to my quarters. I've never entertained a guest before. Are you going to kill me? After all you've done, kill me? As if to right your wrongs. Nothing changes. Such is the nature of man.
I don't know what he's talking about with this atonement for sins. I've got the butcher set. I'm not here to be the good guy. But killing him gets you the blood letter, and it also stops the invasions. However, you still get the rewards. So, here you get the headpiece. There are 4 different invasion spots. Each piece gives you one, section of his armor. 1 armor piece. So, there's the head, and heading back. You may notice the frenzy thing. That's because I equipped the rune for it, and it doesn't go away on its own when you teleport for some reason, but anyways, we can continue on. And this is supposed to be the first invasion spot. And you get the hand, the gloves, whatever you want to call them. And you can go up that ramp to continue on. Or you can go down here. And here's a little self-contained little part of the area. It is entirely optional, but there's some good stuff here, so I'm gonna go through it. And he really just punched us, didn't he? Wow. Well, we're gonna ignore that, and here a little skitterbug drops down, and we're just gonna roll away because explosions. Now, there are 3 sets of explosions, so be careful. Don't rush in. But that gets you another 3 chunks. And then here you get another 2 chunks. And, again, the spread shots, very good for hitting those explosive barrels. Which takes out a decent part of this group. Not all of it, but it makes the fight a lot more manageable. But with them dead, we are now free to explore the rest of this section. You can go up that ladder anytime if you want to leave. And that is the only way to leave, but there's more stuff here. And there's only, 3 more basic enemies, I believe. So, we're gonna go through here, ignore that item, and you come up here, you pick up this item, and then you're supposed to hear a bell and get the invasion here. And killing them, you get the garb, which this is an enemy through a door. Please ignore the fact that I killed an enemy through a door. But here, a very nice looking chest piece. At least I think. And it also has that 120 defense. And especially with the headpiece, it looks so good. I love it a lot, but single armor set per run. We're using the butcher set this time, so we're just not gonna have the braider set yet. That's for another run, and I can't wait for it. Oh, don't know what the camera did there, but yeah, ignore the fact that we killed 2 enemies through walls. That's not a glitch or anything, that's just it is abusing hitboxes, I suppose we can call it. But that's everything here, so now we can take that ladder back up. And this is where the little skirring thing fell into the hole, where we followed it down. And this is where we got punched by the lightning guy, so hopefully that puts things into perspective. And this is when we first fell down. But instead of going forward, we can go back, where there's a little semi-hidden ladder that lets us get back up to where we were. This is where we got the gloves, or armbands, whatever you want to call them. And yeah, that was a little self-contained section. And now we can continue on into the progress section, where there are a lot more of these enemies. And I kind of wish these... Ow. I don't know why I said ow, that did more stun than damage. But I wish these enemies had a bit more health. Because you only see them for one area, and they're incredibly designed. And so I just wish we got to see more of them. And this is a shortcut that leads back to the lamp. And oh, hello. Well, your deaths, I suppose. But moving on. Yeah, like I said, I just wish they had a bit more health. I mean, even if it was like 30-40% more health, I think that would have done a decent bit. But that was our one, we have to use the weapon in its transformed mode fight for that area. So we no longer have to use that anymore. That as a per state law. And you don't want to get grabbed there because oof. And yeah, this is a new enemy. I kind of glossed over that. But this is a new enemy. We're not going to fight them because I don't find them as interesting. I mean, these ones are a bit interesting. Didn't get to show you why. It died too fast. But the ones up here will get to show it. You see, the ones up here are a lot faster. And they do a jump attack. And they can like slink backwards in a very slimy way. Whereas the ones in the shells didn't move. Ignore that item. You go to pick this up and then you'll hear the bell ringing. And then you get invaded. And here you get the pants. And this is supposed to be the third invasion. And it's only once you do this that you're supposed to go to the Laurence, or the Ludwig fight, and actually take them out in the cell. And while going here first is what you're supposed to do, there's no reason to not do what I did. Outside of you missed the fights. But he uses lead elixir, which is not cool. It's not honorable. So I skip him. Down there's an item, but it's just a triangle gem. And it's not super good. Like, I don't think I've ever used it because it's not great. But this elevator gets you to a door that also brings you back here to the lamp. So that is another shortcut. And heading back down, you may remember when I teleported here, I mentioned putting on the Frenzy rune. And here we equipped sedatives. So there's an item there. You want to go the other path, the one where the item is further back. And you can probably hear him, and you can probably see him, and you can probably feel them chunking down your health bar. You see? There are 2 winter lanterns here. Now there's only 2, so once you take them out, you're safe from the frenzy. But that heavy attack is so good at just perma-stunning them. And that attack up is very good. The health depletes is not. That is the worst downside you can get. But here there's an overlook and a blood gem. That's pretty good, actually. But here, early on in the area, there was a well that I glossed over, but that leads you down. And if you go up and around, you can, like, get them to move, and then you can come back here. And it requires running through the entire area, but you can stand up there and cheese them. And that makes that fight a lot more bearable. Because those giant fish things, in a one-on-one, they're pretty fun to fight. But in a one-on-two, no. And one of them has an anchor, and maybe this is just a me thing, but I don't really like the ones with the anchors nearly as much. Like, the one you see in the beginning is just arms. And the ones with just arms are a lot better. Again, maybe that's just me, but the anchor ones, it feels like they have a lot more combos that can just demolish you and stun lock you. And that's not super fun. It feels like the opposite of what you do most of the game, where you can just R1 spam and everything has 0 poise. It feels like the opposite of that, where you're on the receiving end. And here there's a blood rock, the one and only in the DLC, so enjoy it, because it is very nice. But yeah, things having 0 poise, both you and the enemies, isn't super great. I mean, you having 0 poise for the most part is fine, but not against them. But yeah, one of my beast cutters has healy gems on it now. And so I can pull it out and I will get healing. And I thought about having that heal me up so I could go into this next boss fight. But then I went, well, this next boss fight is very, very difficult. And I'd rather have like a defense rune instead of the frenzy rune. And it has a bolt attack, so I thought about putting that on, but I didn't have it. And so skipping what I did just for time's sake, but I put on 4 more blood vials instead. I thought about putting on more stamina, but I'm usually pretty good with stamina management making sure that I always have a tiny bit left to dodge if I need to. But, you know, you can always use more blood vials. But, with that being said, I will let this cutscene play itself out. And while I consider Laurence to be the hardest boss in Bloodborne, a lot of people say that it's this guy. And you can probably tell that there's definitely at least some merit to that by how my body language is in this fight. Just how hesitant I was to even approach him at first. And ignore the fact that I got a parry there, and just remember that I don't get parries. I do against some enemies, especially early on, and I will in Dark Souls 1, once I get used to that. But outside of Dark Souls 1, I don't get parries. Ignore that timing. I honestly didn't mean to. Ignore that. This is the highest amount of parries I've gotten in the Orphan of Kos fight. I mean, this run is the highest amount of parries I've gotten for Lady Maria and Orphan of Kos. So, ow. So the blunderbuss must have something going for it, right? Because, like, that's not just me. But here's something you may notice. I rolled too late. But something else you may notice is that, in a weird way, Orphan of Kos kind of feels like an Elden Ring boss. In the sense that they spend more time in the air than they do on ground at some points, despite not having wings. And I would say that's my only complaint, because outside of them spending a ton of time in the air, they're a pretty good boss. And I mean, obviously I died there, and that is in large part my fault. But something I notice, not really in Phase 1, but in Phase 2, is they do a lot of jumping around, and it'll throw your camera up, and then automatically de-lock you from the boss. And so you can't see them, and your camera's in kind of a weird position. And you don't really know where they are or where they're going. Or, like, where to dodge because of that. And I shot too late. Now, maybe that's me not having a ton of experience. At least anymore, because I haven't played this game in a while. Which, that could definitely be the case, because not playing a game for 2-3 years has a way of making you forget things. But, like I said, that is my only complaint about Orphan of Kos. They're a lot, like, they feel like an intentionally sloppy Ludwig. 'Cause I know that Ludwig has a ton of arms and legs and whatnot, and they're like throwing themselves about. But they feel very clinical. They feel very precise. And I don't get that feeling with Orphan of Kos. They feel very sloppy in a very intentional way. It feels much more like a primal fight. Like you're fighting an actual beast. And I don't know, maybe I sound delusional, maybe I sound super weird and I'm not making any sense. But it doesn't really feel like you're fighting a beast when you're fighting Ludwig. It feels like you're fighting someone who has a ton of technique and skill and practice. Whereas I rolled the wrong way. Whereas with Orphan of Kos, it really feels like you're fighting something that is fighting for its life, that is trapped in a corner and knows it is trapped in a corner and will do absolutely anything to survive. And I dodged into that. And so, while I say it feels sloppy, that isn't a bad thing. Quite the opposite. I think it's a very, very good thing, and it's very well executed. Like I said, the whole them flying about is my only complaint, and it's not that big of a deal. But Kos here, they kind of look like the worm face things with Deathblight from Elden Ring, with like the hooded face and the tentacles coming out of the mouth. I mean, the body looks different, but I think they look very cool. But we can kill this person, and once again, I will let this cutscene play itself out.
Sweet child of Kos, returned to the ocean. A bottomless curse, a bottomless sea, accepting of all that there is and can be.
And that's the DLC. I know that we have a bit of time left from that 1 hour mark that I have set for myself, but I feel like this is a great place to end it. I mean, we beat Laurence, we beat Lady Maria, we went through Fishing Hamlet, we finished up Simon's quest, we did Braider's thing, and we beat the Orphan of Kos. I feel like we shouldn't add beating the rest of the game on top of that. I feel like this is a very good place to end it. We got very good luck. I mean, End of Maria was a bit tough and we died here, but still. Pretty good luck, good progress, and yeah.